Russia is pushing rapidly into the region with aims to control it before anyone else. Its military has built a modern base that's closer to the US state of Alaska than it is to Moscow.
In one of the most bizarre and tightly controlled stories of the 21st century, a sequence of unexplained events took place in Antarctica during Donald Trump's presidency. A series of leaked documents, satellite imagery anomalies, and insider testimonies point to one chilling conclusion. A military drone stumbled upon something it was never supposed to find, something ancient, powerful, and buried beneath the ice for thousands of years. It all began with a classified military reconnaissance mission in late 2018. The U.S. Air Force had deployed an advanced stealth drone to Antarctica for what officials publicly claimed was a geothermal survey. However, sources close to the operation later revealed that the true purpose of the mission was far more secretive. The drone, equipped with ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging, was not surveying geology. It was scanning for underground structures, and then it found one. Approximately 420 miles from the South Pole, deep beneath the ice shelf, the drone detected a symmetrical heat signature unlike anything the team had ever seen. The anomaly was massive, nearly a mile wide, circular, and radiating consistent thermal energy from a depth of more than 800 feet below the surface. Within hours of the discovery, communications from the drone were cut. A scrambled military response team was immediately dispatched from McMurdo Station under the highest level of secrecy. According to multiple whistleblowers, the mission was classified above top secret, on par with protocols used in nuclear threat scenarios. When the team arrived on site, they found more than just an anomaly. The ground had shifted. A portion of the ice had collapsed into a perfectly circular chasm, revealing part of what lay beneath. A vast metallic structure embedded in the bedrock with massive concentric rings and towering vertical columns. The structure was not made of any known material. Its surface was smooth, cold, and completely resistant to drilling or sampling. Then they found the gates. Described by one witness as enormous, seamless, and humming with low-frequency vibrations, the gates appeared to be part of a larger complex, possibly an underground facility. Symbols adorned the surface, unfamiliar glyphs that seemed to shimmer and shift depending on the viewing angle. Initial attempts to breach the gates using conventional tools failed, but when the team tried a focused electromagnetic pulse, something changed. The ground began to shake. Low-frequency tones, barely within human hearing range, echoed from beneath the ice. Instruments registered magnetic fluctuations in the area, and several soldiers reported vertigo, nausea, and intense psychological effects. One even claimed to have heard whispers, though no one else did. And most disturbingly, surveillance drones in the area began malfunctioning one by one. Within 48 hours, the entire site was placed on lockdown. Satellite feeds were scrambled. The U.S. government declared the area restricted under Emergency Arctic Security Protocol, something that hadn't been used since the Cold War. Then the orders came directly from the top. President Donald Trump, briefed in a closed-door meeting at the White House, allegedly responded to the discovery with a single directive: shut it down, now. What followed was an unprecedented mobilization of military assets in Antarctica. The National Science Foundation suspended all civilian activity at nearby research stations. Over a dozen military aircraft arrived over the following weeks, including cargo planes carrying heavy excavation equipment, classified containers, and personnel with no names, no insignias, and no public records. Behind the scenes, something massive was unfolding. Satellite images of the site began vanishing from public databases. Weather balloons often used to monitor atmospheric conditions in Antarctica were grounded. Independent researchers who tried to investigate were either turned away or threatened with legal action. Then came the silence. For months, nothing leaked. No images, no updates, no reports. Until early 2020. That's when an anonymous whistleblower, an ex-military contractor, sent encrypted files to multiple journalists and alternative media platforms. The files contained blueprints, radio logs, and thermal images from the drone's last transmission. But what caught everyone's attention were 3 photographs. Low resolution, black and white, but unmistakable. They showed what appeared to be gateways, towering structures, arch-shaped, partially covered in frost but unmistakably artificial. One photo showed a faint, glowing symbol, similar to ancient Mesopotamian cuneiform, but not an exact match. Another photo appeared to capture a beam of light emanating from the structure, piercing the ice above and extending upward into the atmosphere. What's more, the radio logs indicated that the structure was emitting rhythmic pulses, precise and timed, like a language. Decoders were brought in. AI was used to run linguistic models. The conclusion? The pulses may be a signal, not just energy, but information. That's when things got even stranger. Multiple nations began posturing for control in Antarctica. Russia and China increased their presence near the region. Strange aircraft were sighted, including unmarked black helicopters and triangular crafts with no visible propulsion systems. For the first time in decades, Antarctica was becoming a geopolitical hotspot. Yet the official narrative remained silent. Meanwhile, back in the United States, Trump's administration ramped up space-related initiatives. The sudden launch of the U.S. Space Force, mocked by many as unnecessary, now began to seem far more strategic. Insiders claimed that Space Force's real mission was not about satellites or defense, but containment. Containment of something they found or awoke. Behind closed doors, briefings continued. Documents leaked in early 2021 suggested that the Antarctic gates may not have been built on Earth, but rather anchored into it, as if they came from somewhere else entirely. Speculation exploded. Some believed the gates were remnants of an ancient civilization, possibly Atlantean or even pre-human. Others believed they were alien constructs, placed here millennia ago. A few dared to propose the most terrifying theory of all, that the gates were not abandoned, but sealed. Sealed to keep something in. As theories spread online, strange reports began surfacing across the globe. Migratory animals behaving erratically, compasses malfunctioning near polar zones, sky anomalies, auroras in places they shouldn't be. And then came the reports of low-frequency hums, the Antarctic hum, as it's now called. Heard by residents in southern Chile, New Zealand, and even parts of South Africa, the hum is a deep, vibrating sound that seems to have no natural source. Acoustic experts have been unable to identify its origin. Then, in late 2021, something changed. A massive geomagnetic pulse was detected from the South Pole, powerful enough to be picked up by satellites. Officially, it was called a solar anomaly. But insiders knew better. The pulse had originated from the same coordinates as the gates, and following the pulse, seismic activity spiked. One of the most powerful subglacial quakes ever recorded in Antarctica occurred within hours. Theories arose that the gate had been activated, or worse, breached. Satellite images taken by civilian telescopes showed a temporary rift in the cloud cover above the site. A circular formation of clouds, unlike any known meteorological phenomenon, hovered for over 6 hours. Then it vanished. What's more, aurora activity surged at the magnetic poles. This, according to some physicists, indicates that the Earth's magnetosphere was being influenced from within, as if something under the crust was pulsing outward rather than the sun pushing in. Rumors exploded. The gates were opened. In early 2022, documents from the NSA, later verified as legitimate, revealed that codenamed Project Perseus had been launched to study and possibly contain non-human architecture of unknown function beneath Antarctic ice. The documents included references to an event codenamed Protocol Genesis, with timeline projections leading into the year 2040. That date has since become the center of global concern. According to the leaked notes, if the gates are left unchecked or destabilized, they could initiate a cascade event, altering magnetic poles, destabilizing tectonic systems, and possibly exposing Earth to external entities of unknown intent. Yes, external entities. The implication being whatever lies beyond those gates may not be from our world or our dimension. Donald Trump's rapid and forceful lockdown of the region, at first seen as overreaction, now looks more like a preemptive containment operation. One source stated bluntly, "He saw the data. He saw the simulations. He knew what was down there. And he shut it down because we weren't ready." But are we ready now? With climate change accelerating, the Antarctic ice is melting faster than ever. Every year, more of the subglacial continent is exposed. If these structures are part of a larger system, then more may be uncovered. And if the gates are part of a network, they may not remain inactive forever. Several expeditions have already been quietly launched, backed by private defense contractors and tech billionaires. Elon Musk, who has long hinted at the existence of something big in Antarctica, has been suspected of funding unmanned exploratory drones in the region. The exact purpose of these missions is unknown, but some believe he's not trying to study the gates, but prepare for what comes through them. And so we wait. In the icy silence of the southern pole, something ancient stirs. In the wake of the Antarctic lockdown, attention quietly shifted toward ancient texts and global mythologies. Scholars from around the world began comparing the mysterious glyphs from the gates to symbols found in civilizations that, historically, should have had no connection to Antarctica. What they found was unsettling. In the ruins of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, widely considered the world's oldest temple, researchers have identified spiral carvings, concentric arcs, and humanoid figures in poses that mirrored the arrangement seen on the Antarctic gate. These same patterns, almost identical in shape and sequence, were also found etched into stone monuments in pre-Columbian South America and in Australia's Dreamtime rock art. The obvious question followed. How could civilizations separated by thousands of miles and millennia share the same language of symbols? The answer, some now believe, is that they didn't invent them, they inherited them. From where or whom remains unknown. But if the gates are part of a global system, these symbols may be a common operating language, a kind of spiritual and scientific lexicon encoded by an advanced pre-human intelligence, or, as some have dared to suggest, an extraterrestrial caretaker species. What gives this theory weight is not just the similarity of the symbols, but their context. The symbols, wherever found, are always associated with the same themes: the underworld, star knowledge, communication with higher beings, and, most often, gateways. And always in these myths, the gates are protected, hidden, and considered dangerous if opened. In ancient Sumerian lore, the Anunnaki are described as descending from the heavens to bring knowledge and judgment. They emerged from what the texts called the Abzu, a deep underworld sea beneath the earth, and entered the realm of man through divine gates. Strikingly, these gates were never purely spiritual in nature. They were literal points of passage, portals that only certain beings could survive moving through. Now, with Antarctica's newly discovered gate structure sharing the same motifs and mathematical ratios found in ancient Mesopotamian stelae, the theory gains traction. Earth's ancient gods may not have been myths, but visitors, travelers through gates that have long since closed, until now, and there's more. Shortly after the site was sealed off by the Trump administration, an obscure memo was leaked from a NATO science division. The memo described a theoretical concept labeled phase-matching architecture, in which certain geometrical designs built into Earth's magnetic ley lines could function as resonance amplifiers for interdimensional signaling. The Antarctica gates, the memo speculated, were perfectly phase-aligned. According to the document, when global electromagnetic fields reach a certain resonance, triggered perhaps by solar activity, lunar cycles, or the Earth's axial tilt, the gates might not simply open physically, but interdimensionally. In this model, the structure is not a machine in the traditional sense, but a tuning fork designed to vibrate the very fabric of space-time. This concept would be dismissed as pseudoscience if not for one thing: the signals. Researchers monitoring the Antarctic region reported repeated low-frequency transmissions, too regular to be natural, too complex to be random noise. The patterns, when converted into spectrograms, revealed what looked eerily like musical notation. Chords, sequences, almost like a melody. A few musical historians even compared the frequencies to ancient Sumerian hymns, once believed to be used in temple rituals to call the gods. Were the gates singing? Were they being activated remotely? The idea that these structures could be responding to cosmic triggers led some scientists to re-examine one of Earth's most enigmatic cycles, the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year astronomical wobble that ancient cultures, from the Mayans to the Egyptians, seemed obsessed with. Why? Because the end of the precessional cycle often coincided with massive cultural shifts, cosmic disasters, or mythic golden ages. The last known shift occurred roughly 12,000 years ago, right around the time Plato dated the destruction of Atlantis. It now appears the Antarctic gates were constructed or activated during this exact period. And here's the terrifying implication: the next cycle is beginning now. This revelation leads us to examine why Trump moved so quickly and decisively to close off the continent. Sources from within the Pentagon say the moment he was shown classified data regarding the structure, he canceled 3 public events and summoned his national security team to the Situation Room. In that meeting, according to a leaked CIA operations log, Trump was shown 3D holographic reconstructions of the gate site, behavioral analysis of the emitted frequencies, and a predictive simulation of what could happen if the gates were left untended. The simulation ended in global catastrophe, not from an invasion or war, but from a massive planetary pole shift, an event that would cause widespread earthquakes, tsunamis, atmospheric collapse, and the failure of human infrastructure on an unprecedented scale. The catalyst? A sudden, unexplained inversion of the Earth's magnetosphere, triggered by the full activation of the gate complex. The conclusion was clear. The gates may be a planetary control mechanism, perhaps a failsafe, or perhaps a warning system. Either way, their activation could mean humanity is on the verge of a reset. This ties directly into ancient texts across multiple civilizations that describe periodic resets or cleansings of the Earth. The Mayan long count calendar ends at the moment of a great return. The Hindu yugas describe cycles of birth, decay, and renewal. And in the Bible, the Nephilim, giants of divine origin, are said to have walked the earth before a great flood wiped the slate clean. Could the gates be a part of this repeating pattern? Even more unsettling are rumors that the Trump administration's awareness of the Antarctic gates influenced not just military action, but political messaging. The sudden, repeated references to draining the swamp, deep state, and the storm may not have been only political metaphors. A faction within the government allegedly believes the true deep state is not human, but an ancient intelligence sleeping beneath our feet. And it gets stranger. In mid-2020, a group of high-ranking military officials reportedly traveled to Antarctica for a climate emergency summit. No press coverage, no photos, no transcripts. But what followed was a sequence of unprecedented global events. An increase in UFO disclosures, the sudden softening of government policy toward the existence of non-human craft, and the infamous Pentagon acknowledgement of the Tic Tac object. Were these events connected? Some insiders say yes. They suggest the reason for these disclosures was not curiosity, but preparation. That perhaps the intelligence community wanted to acclimate the public to the idea of non-human contact in a controlled way, because uncontrolled contact might be imminent. And this theory is further supported by the apparent correlation between UAP sightings and magnetic anomalies, many of which align with ancient megalithic structures and supposed energy nodes around the globe. But Antarctica remains the epicenter. One final chilling detail emerged from a document declassified in 2023. The file, redacted but readable in part, referred to a device within the Antarctic gate structure as a dimensional anchor. The purpose of this anchor was described in only one sentence: to stabilize the intersection between localized spacetime and non-linear vectors of conscious expression. In simpler terms, it may be holding reality itself in place. And if that anchor is destabilized, reality could fracture. Parallel dimensions, entities, timelines, they may all be real, and they may be kept at bay by a delicate and ancient system we are only now beginning to uncover. So where do we go from here? Military presence in Antarctica has quietly increased. Private space companies have reportedly been denied access to polar orbits under vague security concerns. And there are whispers, unconfirmed but persistent, that a second gate has been discovered. Not in Antarctica, but in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. Could this be a global network coming online? The pieces seem to be falling into place. An ancient system built by an intelligence far beyond our own, hidden in plain sight, activated by cosmic cycles, and tied directly to the fate of Earth's civilization. Trump may have seen this coming. Whether you see him as a hero or a villain, his actions in Antarctica suggest one thing. He believed the danger was real. He believed that unless the site was locked down, studied, and contained, the gates would unleash forces humanity is not yet prepared to face. And the question that haunts every researcher, every insider, every whisperer in classified channels is simple. What if they already have? The sudden increase in anomalous mental health cases among people stationed in Antarctica, the bizarre dreams reported by researchers, the strange phenomena, electronic interference, wildlife disruptions, even glowing auroras at night with no solar flare activity, may all be early symptoms. The gates are not just metal structures, they are consciousness amplifiers, planetary regulators, portals, and they're no longer dormant. So the next time you see a news story about Antarctica, whether it's about climate change, ice shelf collapse, or wildlife patterns, remember that's the surface narrative. Beneath the ice, behind the locked coordinates, and sealed by orders from the highest offices of power, lies a truth far older than civilization itself. A truth Donald Trump acted swiftly to conceal. Not because it wasn't real, but because it was. And now, as the Earth tilts toward another cosmic alignment, the clock ticks down. The hum grows louder, the pulse quickens, and the gates wait. Not for permission, but for convergence. When the stars align, when the ice melts, and when the hum becomes a song once more, the choice may no longer be ours. The gate will open, and the world will change forever.